Hello, and thank you for attending our in-service today about nonfiction text comprehension in the elementary classroom. As we've already been discussing today, there are a lot of resources that are available for you to use when you are teaching text features to your students about nonfiction text. So some examples that I have with me today are, first, my favorite example, which is going to the library. And I like to go to the library and get a variety of nonfiction text examples for my students to read. So for example, something that's often really popular for students are books about animals and nature. So we have this book is one that I picked up at the library, and I could use this to teach most of the different text features to my students. I could teach them about titles, for example. This book has a table of contents in the front, as well as the glossary and index in the back. And so I could teach about those features with this book. It also, throughout the book, has a variety of illustrations with captions. Since I do teach at a virtual school, I might share this just like I'm sharing it with you now over the webcam, and I might use Post-its or flags to point out the different parts of the text. Other books that you can use are more narrative in nature, like this book, A Weed is a Flower, The Life of George Washington Carver, which is written and illustrated by Leakey. And so this book tells the story of George Washington Carver, and it is nonfiction. However, it's more of a narrative. That wouldn't be appropriate for what I want to do today, because today I want to teach my students about subtitles. So this wouldn't be an appropriate book choice. Another great place to look is those magazine type of resources, and our curriculum provides us with some materials that are just like those periodicals for kids. So within this periodical, I'm teaching about subtitles. I'm trying to make a good choice about what I'm going to use. I can see here that I have an article about the life of a butterfly. And I'm looking through this article, and it has a lot of text features, but one thing that it doesn't have is subtitles. So I'm going to continue looking through my text here, and I come to the next section, which is I see a honeybee. And as I page through I see a honeybee, I notice that this article does have subtitles. So because this is a publication that all of my students also have, I might use this to introduce subtitles to my students so that we are all looking at the subtitles together and discussing them and noticing how they begin each new section. Another resource that I really like to use is Scholastic, because on scholastic.com there are virtual resources that I can use with my students and that you could use in your classroom as well. So I might share one of those articles with my students. I could print it out like this, or I could share it over our web conferencing tool. We could look at the article, like I'm looking at this one now, about the red panda, and as I read down the article, there are subtitles here that students might notice. There are also kid-friendly versions of the Scholastic News, and so this is probably what I would choose to use to teach my students about subtitles, because it's a short page. We can see everything in one place, and we can discuss each of those. So I might use one article as an example for the teaching and modeling part of my lesson, and then I could give the students a different article either on paper like this or virtually on our web conferencing tool, and they could highlight or use Post-it flags to indicate the places where they find the subtitles within the text. And then we could have a partner discussion and even come back and report to the group what we find and what we notice about subtitles in the text. Another resource I may have used would be a book like this one called Let's Go Rock Collecting. It talks specifically about something nonfiction without being a narrative text, but this one does not have subtitles when I page through, so it wouldn't be a good choice in text.